USS Aaron Ward's story during the May 3rd attacks illustrates the proximity fuse as force multiplier. When 40 Kamikaze attacked, her batteries fired continuously for 52 minutes. VT shells destroyed 6 attackers completely and damaged 5 others severely enough they crashed into the sea. Commander William Saunders testified that without proximity fuses, his ship would have been overwhelmed in the first 10 minutes. These accounts multiplied across the entire fleet. During the 10 major Kikusui operations from April 6 to June 22, 1945, Japanese forces launched approximately 1,900 aircraft in organized kamikaze attacks. American naval forces, primarily using VT shells, destroyed hundreds before they could reach targets. Operations research showed ships equipped with proximity-fused ammunition were 3 times more likely to survive concentrated kamikaze attacks than those relying on conventional ammunition. Production statistics told the story of industrial warfare at its apex. By June 1945, American factories produced 70,000 proximity fuses daily. The war effort would see over 22 million fuses manufactured at a cost exceeding $1 billion 1940s dollars, roughly $15 billion today. The Crossley Corporation alone employed 10,000 workers across 3 shifts, 7 days a week. Each fuse cost had dropped from $732 in 1942 to just $18 by 1945 through mass production efficiencies. Japanese industrial capacity, devastated by strategic bombing and resource shortages, could produce nothing comparable. While Japanese scientists understood the proximity fuse concept, German reports on Allied special ammunition had reached Japan via submarine. They lacked industrial infrastructure to develop and mass-produce such sophisticated devices. The vacuum tube technology alone required precision manufacturing Japan's war-ravaged industry couldn't achieve. By May 1945, kamikaze pilots were instructed to approach at maximum altitude before diving vertically onto targets, hoping to minimize VT exposure. This tactical adjustment reduced losses during approach but made accurate targeting nearly impossible. Ships could maneuver out of the dive path, and high-altitude approach gave radar operators more time to track incoming aircraft. The attempted solution proved counterproductive. Admiral Richmond Kelly Turner, commander of amphibious forces at Okinawa, credited proximity fuses with making the invasion possible. In a letter to the chief of naval operations, he wrote, "Without the VT fuse, our losses from suicide attacks would have been unbearable." The Japanese kamikaze was a formidable weapon that could have changed the outcome of the Pacific War if not for our technological superiority in anti-aircraft defense. Admiral Arleigh Burke, Mitcher's chief of staff, recalled effectiveness during a 1978 interview. All the 5-inch ammunition was fitted with VT fuses. Those fuses knocked down enemy planes by the dozens. Had it not been for those fuses, our ship's losses and casualties in the fast carriers would have been enormously larger. The proximity fuse fundamentally altered the morale equation that made kamikaze tactics viable. Japanese military doctrine assumed certainty of death for pilots would be balanced by near certainty of hitting enemy ships. When success rates dropped below 20% due to VT defenses, the exchange became unsustainable even by the brutal calculus of suicide warfare. Letters recovered after the war revealed growing awareness among kamikaze pilots that American defenses had evolved beyond what commanders promised. Lieutenant Seki Yukio, leader of the first official kamikaze unit in October 1944, achieved devastating success against escort carriers at Leyte Gulf when proximity fuses comprised only 25% of ammunition. By Okinawa, his successors faced a fundamentally different reality. During the entire Okinawa campaign, Japanese kamikaze attacks sank 36 American ships and damaged 368 others. Terrible as these losses were, they represented survival of the vast majority of ships attacked, impossible without proximity fuses. The 4,907 American sailors killed by kamikaze at Okinawa, while representing the Navy's bloodiest battle, were a fraction of casualties conventional analysis predicted without VT technology. Japanese losses were absolute. Approximately 1,900 aircraft and pilots expended in organized kamikaze attacks during the 10 Kikusui operations, plus hundreds more in improvised suicide attempts, achieving tactical results that fell far short of strategic requirements. The mathematical reality was inescapable. A proximity fuse weighing less than 5 pounds, containing 130 electronic components, manufactured for $18, functioning for less than 30 seconds, could destroy a kamikaze aircraft, representing years of training, tons of aluminum and steel, and most tragically, a human life that could never be replaced. When multiplied across thousands of engagements throughout the Pacific theater, this equation translated into American victory through technological superiority. The proximity fuse's success against kamikaze attacks validated the entire American approach to warfare in the 20th century. Investment in technology, faith in industrial production, and belief that superior equipment could overcome fanatical determination proved correct in the most extreme test imaginable. For Japan, kamikaze failure against proximity fused defenses represented not just military defeat, but invalidation of core beliefs about spirit triumphing over matter. The electronic fuse had defeated the divine wind, proving that in modern warfare, advanced technology would triumph over human sacrifice. Commander Tadashi Nakajima, who helped establish the kamikaze program, admitted after the war, "We knew the Americans had superior technology, but the proximity fuse was beyond our imagination. Our pilots reported shells exploding exactly where they flew, as if guided by invisible hands. It destroyed not just our aircraft, but the fundamental premise of the special attack, that spiritual power could overcome material disadvantage." Secretary of the Navy James Forrestal summarized the contribution. "The proximity fuse has helped blaze the trail to Japan. Without the protection this ingenious device has given the surface ships of the fleet, our westward push could not have been so swift, and the cost in men and ships would have been immeasurably greater." The electronic fuse had not just defeated the kamikaze, it had validated the entire American approach to warfare through superior technology, proving definitively that in matters of life and death, quality of equipment could overcome quantity of sacrifice. In the skies over Okinawa, when the electronic fuse met the human pilot, the outcome was predetermined by factories in Cincinnati, laboratories in Maryland, and the fundamental belief that technology could preserve life while achieving victory.
The horizon glows red over the East China Sea on April 6, 1945. 16 miles from the main American fleet, radar operators aboard the destroyer USS Laffey watched their screens fill with contacts. Not dozens, hundreds. Gun crews load shells marked VT, each one containing a technological marvel that will redefine naval warfare. Operation Kikusui Number One is about to begin, the first of 10 massive kamikaze waves that will test American defenses to their breaking point. The sound arrives before the sight. Hundreds of aircraft engines, a mechanical thunder rolling across the water. These are the special attack units of the Imperial Japanese Navy, Zero fighters and Yokosuka dive bombers, each pilot sealed in his cockpit with no return planned. Behind them come older aircraft pressed into suicide service and rocket-powered Ohka flying bombs carried beneath Betty bombers. What happens in the next hours will prove whether American technology can withstand Japan's ultimate weapon, men willing to become missiles. The VT proximity fuse represented one of World War II's 3 most guarded secrets, alongside radar and the atomic bomb. Developed in a crash program starting in 1940 by Dr. Merle Tubbs' team at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, it solved an impossible problem. A miniature radio transmitter would broadcast continuous waves, measuring their return frequency. When the Doppler shift indicated proximity to a target, the shell would detonate automatically. No more guessing distances or setting mechanical timers. The shell itself would know when to explode. The engineering challenges seemed insurmountable. Every component, including glass vacuum tubes manufactured by Sylvania, had to survive 20,000 times the force of gravity when fired. The projectile would spin at 25,000 revolutions per minute while traveling at 2,600 feet per second. Everything had to function perfectly after this violent launch, then operate reliably in temperatures ranging from 100 degrees to -50. By April 1945, American factories had produced over 15 million of these electronic miracles. The Crossley Corporation alone manufactured over 5 million fuses. This massive industrial mobilization gave American forces at Okinawa the most advanced anti-aircraft ammunition ever created. The Navy had increased VT allocation from 25% of anti-aircraft ammunition in 1943 to 75% by 1945. Every destroyer, cruiser, and battleship carried thousands of these shells as primary defense against suicide attacks. Japan's Kamikaze program emerged from catastrophic defeat. After losing most of their experienced pilots and carriers in the Marianas and Philippine Sea battles, Vice Admiral Takajiro Onishi proposed special attack units in October 1944. Conventional tactics couldn't succeed against overwhelming American firepower. The kamikaze would transform inexperienced pilots into precision-guided weapons. The mathematics appeared favorable. While conventional attacks achieved only 2% hit rates against defended ships, early kamikaze strikes in the Philippines exceeded 34% success. A single pilot in an obsolete Zero carrying a 250-kilogram bomb might sink a destroyer, trading one life and one aircraft for hundreds of American casualties and millions in damages. The pilots received abbreviated training emphasizing spiritual preparation over flying skills. Many had under 100 flight hours compared to 500 for their Pearl Harbor predecessors. They learned basic navigation, ship recognition, and the final diving approach meant to evade anti-aircraft fire. They wrote farewell letters, participated in ceremonial sake toasts, received samurai swords or rising sun headbands, but no spiritual preparation could overcome the technological revolution awaiting them. The Ohka suicide weapon, nicknamed Baka or Fool by Americans, carried this philosophy to its extreme. With a 1,200-kilogram warhead and rocket motors pushing it to 575 miles per hour in terminal dive, it seemed unstoppable. Yet its fatal weakness was range, barely 10 miles, requiring vulnerable Betty bombers to carry them into American defenses. Operation Kikusui Number One launched 391 Navy planes and 133 Army planes, 297 suicide aircraft in a single coordinated assault. Commander Frederick Beckton of USS Laffey later described the approaching waves as a swarm of bees heading for the only flower in the desert. The first wave struck at 0600 hours. Radar tracked over 50 aircraft approaching from the north. The picket destroyers opened fire at 12,000 yards with VT shells. The proximity fuses proved devastatingly effective. Each shell passing within lethal range automatically detonated, filling the sky with steel fragments. Unlike time-fuse shells requiring precise range estimation, VT fuses turned near misses into kills. Within minutes, dozens of Japanese aircraft were falling into the sea, their missions ended miles from targets. But the kamikaze kept coming. At 0744, USS Laffey endured concentrated attack by 22 aircraft in 80 minutes. Her gunners fired 345 rounds of VT ammunition, destroying 9 attackers outright. The proximity fuses allowed simultaneous engagement of multiple targets, switching rapidly between aircraft without delays for fuse setting. When kamikaze pilots attempted low-altitude approaches to avoid radar, VT fuses proved equally effective, detonating near the sea surface and creating walls of fragments that shredded low-flying aircraft. Despite this devastating defensive fire, Laffey was struck by 6 kamikaze and 4 bombs, yet survived. The proximity fuses had prevented many more attackers from reaching their target. The VT fuse's effectiveness was no accident. It had been secretly tested since January 5, 1943, when USS Helena fired the first proximity fuse shells off of Guadalcanal. Lieutenant Cochrane's battery shot down a Val dive bomber with the second of 3 salvos. The shells hadn't scored direct hits. They simply passed close enough to trigger and tear the aircraft apart with fragments. This single success validated 3 years of intensive development. Post-battle analysis at Okinawa revealed mathematical superiority. Time-fused shells required an average of 1,162 rounds to destroy each kamikaze. VT shells reduced this to 310 rounds per kill, nearly a 4-fold improvement. In optimal conditions, results were even more dramatic. The destroyer escort USS Abercrombie destroyed a Kamikaze with just 2 VT rounds in May 1945. The psychological impact on Japanese pilots was profound. Surviving kamikaze who aborted missions reported terrifying experiences approaching American task forces through seemingly solid walls of exploding shells. The distinctive black puffs of VT explosions appeared with uncanny accuracy, as if American gunners could see exactly where each aircraft would be. Japanese tactical doctrine had assumed high-speed, low-altitude approaches would minimize exposure. The VT fuse invalidated these assumptions entirely. Vice Admiral Matome Ugaki, directing kamikaze operations from Kyushu, noted in his diary the increasingly devastating effectiveness of American defenses. By late April, Japanese naval intelligence estimated fewer than 1 in 4 kamikaze were reaching targets, compared to 1 in 3 during the Philippines campaign. The difference was attributed to new type anti-aircraft shells that seemed to explode with impossible accuracy. Individual gun crews became legends within their task forces. On destroyer USS H.W. Hadley during the May 11th attack, gunners claimed 17 confirmed kamikaze kills using VT ammunition. They developed techniques of leading kamikaze with continuous fire, creating walls of VT explosions that attacking aircraft had to fly through. Their guns could fire 15 rounds per minute, each shell equipped with its own electronic brain seeking targets.